any kind of beating yourself up, speaking down on yourself, trying to give yourself a pep talk. This is not high standards. This is pointing a gun to yourself. My name is Ege. I'm the founder of Data-Driven Actualization, where we help analytical men optimize their minds so they don't just have a good life on paper, but they also feel great, confident, and at peace while performing at a high level. This is a behind-the-scenes clip from our Data-Driven Actualization mastermind, where we work on exactly that. I hope you enjoy. So we covered how faulty beliefs form during childhood, how they become who you are. Now let's talk about what an introjection actually is and how they work in the psyche. So simple explanation is an introjection is when we absorb false information from someone else or the environment around us. So sometimes it's not even a specific person we can point to, but it's an experience. And usually introjections are taken from parents, culture, teachers, or peers. And in most cases, this information might feel useful at the time, or even moral at the time, but it can destroy us from the inside over the years. So the way I think of this is it's almost like a Trojan horse virus that sneaks into your system, right? You think you're downloading something that's useful, and next thing you know, the system's crashing, you don't know what's going on. And that's exactly how introjections work. A lot of the time, as we talked about with the 4 stages, we're trying to fix a problem with good intentions, but we're doing it without having the full capacity to see it from a higher perspective, and eventually that might turn into an introject. And what's crazy is an introject can be so deep that it might feel like that's just who you are. So personally, when I was growing up, I thought I was a smart kid who was overweight, who was good at school stuff, but who didn't have anything to offer to people. And I thought people wouldn't be interested in me. They wouldn't care what I had to say. But looking back and learning about this work, one of the core things I realized was what actually happened was my parents got separated, and then my mom ended up marrying someone else, and my stepdad was just not a very social person. Like, he was super logical, he didn't care about meeting people. To this day, the only person he spends time with really is my mom. Like, he doesn't have his own group of friends, right? And, you know, I don't know what was going through his head, but during that time, around the ages of 7 or 8, I would get invites to birthday parties from my friends. And what would happen is, you know, like, I would some days go to the bathroom and forget to turn off the light. So they would pick something I did just randomly, and they would say, oh, you didn't turn off the light to the bathroom, therefore you cannot go to this party. And I was like, bro. And it wasn't even like, sure, if I left the house door open and someone came into the house and suddenly we lost half our belongings, fine, put me on detention. I can respect that, right? I still don't agree with it, but at least I can understand it. But it was all these small situations where I thought to myself, like, what? Just because I didn't turn off the light from the toilet, I can't go to my friend's birthday party? Now, the thing is, my friends didn't know why I couldn't come, right? So what happened over time is they invited me to their birthdays. I couldn't go, and I didn't want to explain to them why I couldn't go because I felt embarrassed, like it doesn't even make sense. So rationally, they started inviting me less because they're like, I'm inviting this guy, he seems cool in person, but he doesn't come to my birthday, so why would I keep inviting him over and over again if he's not going to come? And over time, I started believing, well, maybe I'm just going to be good at math and physics and all this logical subjects, but I'll just have no friends. And that couldn't have been further from the truth, right? So when I got to college and I had a little bit more freedom and I learned how to talk to people, before all this belief work, I actually realized how much people enjoyed spending their time around me. So this is a picture from an event I hosted in LA when I was going to college. Me and my friend would host like a monthly event like this at his house, just bringing people together, right? And not only I realized how much people enjoyed spending their time around me, I also realized how much I enjoyed it. That I wasn't actually someone who disliked people, who preferred just being on the computer. That this pattern only arose as a result of factors outside of my control. And without this pattern, reality was very different. So I'm telling this story because I want you to maintain some level of openness to even parts of yourself where you feel like are really who you are. But maybe those parts are holding you back. For example, one thing, Dom shared earlier on the call was about like eating lunch alone. And maybe at some point he believed, again, I could be wrong here, but maybe at some point he's like, oh, I don't even like people. I like to eat my own stuff anyways. And then that story became more of a thing going into adulthood. And now he's, going traveling everywhere and meeting people on demand whenever he wants, right? And he's like, oh, people are great. So be open to how much you can change as a person when you give an introject back, because that openness allows you to go deeper into that state. And don't hold yourself back by putting yourself into a box of who you think you are. That's very important. So to make this more concrete, here's a quick example of how an introject can form. Imagine you're a few years old, you're playing with some soldiers in your room, you come up with a new cool strategy, and you run out of the room, and you're excited to show it to your dad. Unfortunately, your dad's in the middle of a work meeting, so when you tap him in the leg, he looks at you and he says, no, not now, Dad is doing something important. Remembering egocentric causality between the ages of 3 to 7, everything's about me. What happens is you might get discouraged, you stare down at the floor, you walk back to your room. At that age, you can't understand meetings or schedules or even what a boss is. So you might take that experience and unconsciously create the story that I am not important. And that can be a normal way to process this as a kid, because that's the faculty that's available to you to make sense of it at the time. But decades later, that belief can still be running you, right? You might be afraid to speak up in meetings, even when you're the most qualified person in the room, because deep down you feel like what I have to say isn't important because I'm not important. Or maybe you don't talk to the woman that you're attracted to because she feels out of your league. Or sometimes we try to disprove the voice, right? With achievements or status. I mean, people go into careers and try to advance through it just because they feel a sense of I am not important. And they think, oh, once I become the VP, the CEO, the this or this, or I get a certificate or a degree from this university, then people will know how important I am, right? So the core thing to understand about introjection, and with any belief really, is until you remove that belief at its root, it quietly controls thousands of tiny decisions that you make. This is why doing this type of belief work is such a high leverage activity, because it can completely change the trajectory of your life, not only in terms of what you can achieve and what you can build, but also the way you feel going about this process. So a few common introjects, and just a quick disclaimer here, these are examples, right? If you don't think this is true for you, a lot of you guys have been here for a long time, so a lot of this has probably transmuted anyway. Please do not take this on. If you just take it on because I said so, you'd actually be taking introject from this presentation, and I don't want that. These are some examples. I have to perform to be loved. I'm not allowed to rest if there's something that needs to be done. I'm not good enough. I think this one will resonate with a few people here. I have to be perfect. I even got a few messages of people telling me, yeah, I'm a little bit overwhelmed about the cohort because I can't do everything I want to do. Just do what you can. It's all good. You don't have to do it perfectly. I have to do it perfectly. I have to show up perfectly or I don't show up at all. My worth is conditional on my output. I need to be fully ready before I can act. These are some examples of introjects. I see a few people are smiling as they feel caught in the act. It's okay. Understanding is the most important step. And once we know, oh, this is an introject, then we can work with it. This was a clip from our year-long data-driven actualization mastermind for analytical men. If you resonate with it and you'd like to know how the transformation would look like for your life, you don't have to commit to a year. You can start with a 30-day U 2.0 accelerator as a risk-free test drive. You get the same system, the same modules, the same coaching, the same actualized OS tracking software. And the way we've designed it is if you just take the actions that would help you get results, you get to earn your investment back, which means I need to also filter you as a person to make sure you're not going to take advantage of this, right? So if you're interested, the next step is go to the link in description and book a planning call so I can understand exactly where you're at, what your goals are, what you're struggling with, and tell you if this would be helpful for you. And then only from there, you decide after you work with us in a risk-free way, whether you want to stay for a year. If this system, this message, these goals resonate with you, click the link below and book a call and we'll speak from there.